Hello. I want to welcome everyone out there in social media land and welcome Kamau. I'm thrilled to host this inaugural episode of Talk Story. My name is George Cheung and I direct More Equitable Democracy. Our mission is to advance racial equity through transforming our electoral systems. And I've always dreamed of being a talk show host, a Chinese American Oprah, maybe. So I'm getting to live my best life. A few things before we start here. A land acknowledgement. In this virtual setting, we're all dialing in from different locations. So we are both dialing in from Duwamish and Coast Salish land. If you don't know what Indigenous land you're on, there's a link in the comments to find out. One other quick acknowledgement. I want to talk about the concept of talk story. It really comes from the Hawaiian tradition. Hawaiian was an oral language that was passed down through stories from generation to generation. And to talk story is really about conversing, sharing experiences to be raw, authentic, and bonding with those that we share in this moment. And that's what we want to do. We want to talk story with leaders of color who are reshaping and transforming our democracy. And to make it fun, we'll also have some games and some silly questions as well. So, all right, let's begin. Kamau Chege leads the Washington Community Alliance, formerly the Washington Census Alliance, a statewide coalition of dozens of organizations and tribes led by and working in communities of color to secure multiracial democracy in Washington state. Kamau is a DACA recipient and who intervened in a federal lawsuit against the Trump administration to ensure DACA was protected. And prior to that, Kamau was a leader in our state's immigrant youth movement, co-founding the Washington Dream Coalition. In 2014, he helped lead the effort to pass the Washington State Dream Act. Kamau is also a graduate of Stadium High School and Whitworth University. So welcome, Kamau.
Hey, George. It's fun to be on the first ever talk story, and I think you make a great movement, Oprah.
Right. Well, I don't make as much money, but that's okay. First off, let's start with a very serious question. All right, let's bring it down.
All right.
Since so many of us have been working from home, which has its challenges, we've also been given the opportunity to talk with our partners from across the country for interviews like this. So given that and the importance of our work, we want to start with this very important question. What's the most interesting quirk you've picked up over the past year and a half? AKA, are you wearing pajamas right now?
I think, a lot of people seem to drop the formal dressing when you're working from home. There's no one to impress at the office. There's no one to compliment your drip. And went with the pajamas or the leggings and stuff, and I didn't. I think my wardrobe and general fashion probably changed the most during the pandemic. One, I got rid of a bunch of shoes because you don't really need those. But the other thing is working from home, I felt like I didn't have the same setting to use my computer as a work computer all the time on it. So I developed this pandemic uniform, just like a shirt and a cozy sweater. I've worn a belt every day and tucked in my shirt every day of the pandemic, and that's made me feel like I've kept it together. I wish I could be serious with pajama pants on, but I just can't. What's been yours?
Well, I'm not going to totally deny that I wear pajamas. The one that I perhaps wear, but I'm not committing to, is one that says, don't poke the bear, which has, I guess, multiple meanings depending on how you know me. What about anything else, besides changed fashion sense? What else has changed in terms of your life?
Let's see. More plants, walks. I do a lot of short walks now. I got glasses during the pandemic.
Stylish.
I kept the screen all day. Probably had something to do with it. Otherwise, I don't think I've gotten as many weird quirks. I did not learn a new language. I did not get into pottery. I haven't baked sour bread or sourdough bread.
Yet.
None of that.
Yet.
Maybe a little more cooking here and there.
I think that I took on gardening hardcore. Like I built out 3 raised beds in front of our house. Kids take the strawberries, which I'm grateful for. So as long as they don't egg my house during Halloween because I have crappy candy, I'm good with it. Take what you want. It's all good. Right now, because the season for growing is pretty much over outside, I bought 3 grow lights and I'm growing pea shoots, loose leaf lettuce, and some head lettuce. I don't know if they're going to turn out like anything, but I watch a lot of YouTube videos. Sometimes my husband catches me like watching my iPad. He's like, "You're watching that gardening porn again, aren't you?" I'm like, "You see me? I'm embarrassed."
So have you harvested anything, or is it all just planting?
We'll harvest the pea shoots pretty soon. So that's going pretty well. And if you ever go to Chinese restaurants and order pea shoots or pea vines with garlic sauce, it's expensive. So when I told my parents that I was growing pea shoots, they're like, "Wow, you're going to be rich." I'm like, "Huh, that was not the response I was expecting, but okay, I will. I won't
Gardening is a good side hustle if you can pull it off, if you have the patience. I'm barely keeping my plants alive. I killed most recently a spider plant, which are notably very hard to kill. So I'm a long way before starting to grow pea shoots and an actual fruit.
Yeah, sometimes I watch the prepper videos because they're very copious about showing what they're growing inside. There's other things that they say that make me feel a little concerned, but there is some wisdom there ish.
Oh, totally.
So, Kamau, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about your story and where did activism in your life begin?
Yeah, for me, I think I read a lot as a kid, and I think by the time I was graduating high school, I had a vague sense and interest in politics. But like for a lot of people, it wasn't until it really affected something close to me that really pushed me into action. So in 2013, I graduated from high school. I was my family and I had immigrated to the U.S. as when I was a kid. I was like 6 years old. We landed in South Carolina, and much later, when I was graduating high school, is when I was realizing that when our papers expired around 2 years after we immigrated, we landed in 2000 and 2001. There was 9/11. We immigrated right, uh, you know, after that, and what was once the Immigration Naturalization Services, an agency that was supposed to help immigrants through the process, then became the Department of Homeland Security. And inside that shuffle, there was a clerical error. And when I was trying to apply for colleges in my senior year of high school, I would get in, and then I wouldn't be able to get state financial aid to go to the college because Washington State at the time didn't allow state financial aid to go to undocumented students. You needed a social security number. And then I tried to dig into it and figure out, why that was. And then I found out it's totally funded by things that everybody pays for. Property taxes, if you're a renter, you're paying into that all the time. If you own a home, you're paying into that. And that was the first real systemic injustice that I felt viscerally, and got involved and found other young people who were in the same situation. And we eventually passed the State Dream Act through protesting and pressure and lobbying the legislature.
And sorry, how old were you at this moment?
I think I was 17, 18.
So you're in high school, like, we talk about like lack of civics education. How did you know how to get active and to advocate?
I just showed up. I went to a hearing, found it on the legislative website. I went to a hearing, I think it was the higher ed committee, and was the only person there. and ran into other people that were there. I think they were part of One America at the time, and asked questions about what they were doing and how I could get involved. And the beginning of every great revolution, was invited to a meeting, and that's where I started organizing and figuring out that if I'm in this situation and I found a few other people who are in the same situation and care about this issue, we can all find a few others that want to get involved with us. And the first time it failed in 2013, the State Dream Act bill failed and got killed. And we then went and knocked on doors in the places in the districts for those senators um, were, and the next
So
year was
you
able to pass.
I mean, okay, so you just skipped over a big chunk of like, okay, knocking on doors is something that a lot of people find exhilarating and terrifying at the same time. Like, so tell me more about how that experience was for you.
Well, so I remember. So the first thing people have to understand is legislators wake up every day. This was the first thing that lesson that I was taught by, you know, Maya Justin at the time, and uh, Pramila Jayapal, which is, legislators wake up every day and they have re-election on their minds. And you might have a great idea, but if that doesn't change their calculation about how they get to stay in office, you're going to have a hard time convincing them. And you're going to have a much easier time if you're also able to align their electoral incentives. And so after the bill failed, there had been all these South King County Republicans who would say they supported the State Dream Act, would say they supported young immigrants, but wouldn't vote that way. And when the legislature ended, we went and we knocked on doors to the people who elect them, their voters, and we talked to them about what their state senator was doing. And they were probably, we were probably the first people to knock on their doors, not asking them for their vote, but letting them know that they should have their voice heard at the legislature. And it was a really effective tactic, because the next year, same group of people who helped kill that bill helped it pass. And we figured out, as young immigrants who were involved in that work, that we could be organizing for much bigger change. And then what led me to what I do now with the Washington Community Alliance, and what was then last year Washington Census Alliance, was realizing that we have very deep problems with our democracy at the federal level. And the lesson that I had drawn from that State Dream Act fight was, it's actually a lot easier for you to make change at the local and state level. That's a playing field where there's still a lot of big money, still a lot of corporate and lobbyist influence, but you can build up the people power to really match it. And there aren't silly things like reconciliation or the filibuster, or with a country as large as 300 million people and all these other things. It's just state government. It's a lot easier for you to make that change. And I think that's one of the things that makes me really excited about the work we do now, is trying to model just and equitable laws and multiracial democracy for the rest of the country. So if Washington State, for example, passed the State Dream Act in 2014, why has Congress not passed the Federal Dream Act or comprehensive immigration reform for everyone almost 7 years later? And if, Washington State is able to reform how we do elections, or pass a wealth tax, and make sure that people like Jeff Bezos and Microsoft billionaires are paying their fair share, maybe then there's more pressure on Congress to pass a federal wealth tax and those sorts of things. So that's how I got involved, and why I've stayed involved and organized every day.
Wow, that was very exciting to connect all the dots in terms of your own personal experience and what got you motivated and inspired. So, in order to get to know you a little bit better, we're gonna play a little game.
I'm down.
Here we go. This is a game called My People, My People, and so we want to pivot to get to know you a little bit better. All right. A lot of us do this work because of the communities that we come from, and we'll dig into that in greater detail over the course of this conversation. But we also want to know that community can be defined in so many ways. So we're introducing this game, My People, which helps us learn more about how you identify, but in fun and silly ways. So, for instance, I might say, My people live on Twitter, and you might respond, My people eat pizza with a knife and fork, and we all will judge you for that. Just kidding, or maybe kidding.
Yeah,
All right.
unless you put pineapple on your pizza.
Ooh, controversy. Let's not go there. We don't want to lose too many audience members so quickly. Okay, so we're going to do this in 90 seconds in a quick lightning round between you and me.
Okay.
So I will start first. Here is 90 seconds on your mark, get set, go. My people crack chicken bones and suck the marrow out of it.
Ooh, my people love every kind of curry.
Nice. My people organize entire vacations around Grand Slam tennis tournaments.
Um, my people grew up a juvenile and do it for the 99 and the 2000.
Nice. My people tap the table when you pour them tea.
My people drink coffee black, but put cream in our tea.
Oh. My people sound like they're yelling when they're speaking Cantonese or Toisanese.
My people rank pad see ew over pad thai every time.
I think I'm your people. My people love the sound of clicking mahjong tiles at 2 in the morning.
Ooh, my people will play dominoes all night.
Mm. My people will picnic at our ancestors' grave sites, ideally twice a year.
Hmm. Um, my people will pray to big trees and Mount Kilimanjaro.
Oh, nice. My people, when they hear the Elton John song Circle of Life, they immediately think about spawning salmon at the Ballard Locks.
My people dance and tweet like no one is watching.
All right. Thank you for that. Now we know a little bit more about Kamau Chege. Um, let's pivot. I want to learn more about the Washington Community Alliance. Coming off that silly game where you've told us about your people, let's talk more about how those communities have shaped your orientation to this work. So, why don't you talk about the Washington Community Alliance and its origin story?
Yes. And this is one I think like you know really well. The Washington Community Alliance, which is a coalition of dozens of organizations of color around Washington State, first came together for the around the 2020 census, or in anticipation of what was going to be really a rigging of the census and potentially our democratic institutions for the next 10 years. People might have forgotten about this, but then President Trump, then Attorney General Jeff Sessions, and a lot of other people had been planning on not counting undocumented immigrants during the census to try and pre-gerrymander, to gerrymander the data, and then eventually gerrymander the maps. And in Washington State, a bunch of organizations and tribes came together to get ahead of that and make sure that there was going to be deep outreach to make sure that everyone was counted. And the reason that I decided to get involved was because, as I mentioned earlier, there are really deep problems with our democracy. And we don't often get to talk about why our democracy doesn't work for the majority of people, why the majority of people want healthcare for all and housing for all, and justice for everybody. And those things don't get delivered by our institutions. And it was a good way, avenue, and portal for talking about that issue, that the only place in our country's constitution that even acknowledges people of color at all was the Census Clause. And in it was the compromise with slavery to count Black people as 3/5 of a person, and to not count Native Americans at all, to try and hide and draw attention away from the fact that there was a campaign of genocide that was ongoing. And if we were ever to have a pluralistic, multiracial democracy where all of our voices matter equally, we first needed to be counted into it. And so those organizations having that message that acknowledged the flaws in our democracy, the reasons people might be skeptical or not want to participate, was really compelling. And them sharing that story and then doing the organizing work to leverage the relationships that they have, the trust that there is built into their institution, was exciting. And we did a pretty good job. We were able to raise a lot of money and do a lot of organizing and make sure everyone was counted, and got Washington State from being among the bottom 30 states in self-response to leading the country with the second highest rate of self-response. And what was most exciting was, after all that work was done, a majority of the organizations wanted to keep doing that work and keep coordinating advocacy, and keep pushing democratic reforms and other justice issues together. And that's what led to the rebrand and rebirth of the coalition as the Washington Community Alliance.
Before you go there, I want to go a little bit deeper in terms of the census organizing. The Washington Census Alliance really built a robust infrastructure in communities of color to be counted in every corner of the state. So when determining what to do with that infrastructure after the census, why did you and the organization arrive at democracy reform?
Well, I think they also kind of saw the limits of what an accurate count would be able to deliver. If, we have everyone counted into our democracy and we are able to see that we are very diverse, vibrant, multiracial country and a very diverse state. People often think of Washington State as really white, but the census numbers show that people of color make up nearly 40% of the state. I think we're just a little over 37%. That could be reflected, but if we still have elections where we're forced to make a single choice between two choices, if we still have winner take all politics where someone wins an election with 51% of the vote and they get 100% of the representation, then that's not a full victory. And I think our members understood that. Our leaders from the Yakama Nation to the Urban League or APIC chapters, they really understood that, and they wanted to implement what they had seen in other places, East Point, Michigan, and places in California where they do have ranked choice voting, they do have proportional representation, and communities of color are able to not just win a seat at the table every now and then, but have a guarantee that they'll be proportionally represented in the democracy that they build and maintain. That's something that they really want to see in Washington State. And so I think that was a very compelling reason why they wanted to not just stop at getting a fair count, but actually winning a fair democracy.
That's so heartening to hear, given I've seen so many democracy reform campaigns that ask the token Black or brown folks to stand on the stage the 11th hour to get their photo taken. And it just seems like you all are doing amazing work to own that space, to create a different center of gravity that helps shape the conversation. And that, to me, is incredibly exciting.
I appreciate that.
Okay, so Switching gears a little bit, I want to talk about you in your particular role. So, in a short period of time, you've gone from organizer to executive director. What are the pitfalls that you see of the professionalization of activism? And what have you learned about yourself in that transition that you wish an early activist uh, that what an early activist should know from your experience?
Yeah. I think there's, two things that I've picked up on. One, maybe to the first part of the question when it comes to how our movements have professionalized. Um, it's really important to the extent possible to be in spaces where you're doing politics um, outside of your job. So, for me, there's organizations I'm a part of and churches I'm a part of where I'm just another person following other people's leadership, and I have organic relationships that I can um, use to engage with people in a little bit of a different way than talking to someone as part of my job. And I think that's really important, whether that's uh, people maintaining those kinds of social relationships outside of their professional day political work is crucially important now, even more so than before. So, just for example, um, we know that there's a huge divergence on trust and institutional trust. We're at a historic low for people's trust in government, people's trust in business, trust in social institutions. That's been on decline basically since the 2000s as people have watched elite failure at every level. But we're also at a historic low for social trust. So even the relational tools that have been the rock bed of organizing for us are extremely low, and that's why the polling is off for our elections. People don't trust each other as they used to, and in communities of color, and especially among young men of color, that's really at a incredible low point. So trying to maintain relationships outside of your professional political work is really important because
Hmm.
that's one of the few levers we still have. The other thing that's become really clear to me is, we have to, as an insurgent movement, um, accumulate as much leverage as we can, and that the biggest point of leverage is actually time, um and those the relationships we have. The longer of time window you're looking at for making change, the much bigger impact you'll have. If you try to make change in a year or a campaign cycle, you're definitely going to be more ambitious than what you're able to realize. But when you start looking at things in increments of 5 years or 10 years, then you really have the opportunity to do a lot of good and make a very large impact, just simply because there aren't that many people that are invested at that level. And being invested in trying to make really big change over the course of 5 or 10 years is where you're really going to be able to um, get the sort of benefits of uh, like the compounding interest that comes with doing that work.
Hmm.
And is a piece of advice I would give to any organizer. You could do a lot in a single campaign. You could do even more in 5 or 7 or 10 campaigns back to back.
That's a great segue to my next question because working on redistricting in the short run, there's only a few more months before lines across the country will be drawn. But if you have a much longer trajectory of change, then much more is possible. So these days, the Community Alliance is working on redistricting, electoral, and legislative politics. And all of this can feel very detached from day to day life. So, how can you help connect the dots for folks about how these things are connected and how they actually shape and interact with their lived experience? In other words,
Yeah.
why should people care?
I mean, this is the most important set of political decisions that might be made for the next decade, which is where are your representatives going to be from? Who's going to compose a majority of the electorate in your district? And even if it's not directly where you live, for the whole state, because because we don't have a proportional system, because we don't have a multi-party democracy, oftentimes we know, especially for communities of color, legislators of color have to care about their district, but they also just have to care about their communities in general. And our legislative districts, in particular in Washington state, are really bad on this point. So we have 4 out of 49 legislative districts that are majority minority, which means you're looking at less than 10% of the districts are majority minority. Just one of them, 1 out of 49, 2% of the legislative districts are majority minority by the eligible electorate, which means white people compose an electoral majority, are able to elect the candidate of their choice in 48 out of 49 legislative districts in all 10 congressional districts. And we have the opportunity to really increase that number. We have and we've been able to see it with Redistricting Justice for Washington, which put out its own maps, and as a result we have commissioners who are drawing maps where 8, 9, 10 of the districts are majority minority, and many more, and much more than just one have an electoral majority. And that goes to that point earlier about if you're thinking about what the districts are going to look like for the next 10 years and not just who's going to sit in them next year, you're able to make a really big impact. And we're in the last final stretch of the last 2 weeks for redistricting. So I'd encourage everybody to go to Redistricting Justice for Washington and find a way to get involved.
Nice. And thank you for your leadership of this work. Having been involved at the last rodeo, where there was lots of blank stares when I talked about redistricting, there is a sea change in terms of readiness for communities of color to really lead in this space.
Can I say something else, George? Which is, when it goes to like how this affects people's material lives, there's lots of really big issues that frankly, we're watching Congress fail to address. Policing, that got dropped. Whatever deal was happening between Senator Cory Booker and Senator Tim Scott fell apart months ago. I'm not even sure if people caught that. Who knows what's going to happen with the reconciliation bill? I just saw news this morning that paid family leave was cut from that. And these are all issues that the state can take on. And here's what's important to redistricting. We have the opportunity to draw the first, majority minority by the eligible electorate east of the mountains, and that's a place where not only have tribes like the Yakama Nation had their votes diluted and Latinos not been able to elect the leaders of their choice there, but there hasn't been a single Black representative that's ever been elected outside of Puget Sound. And so there's a real opportunity for people to be involved in historic change. And that's going to change what kind of policies get pushed for at the legislature and what that discussion is like when people can no longer treat these issues as sort of lefty Seattle tech hipster issues, when in fact we know that those issues are present for everybody, and sometimes usually worse if you are in rural Washington or outside of a big metro area.
Nice. Thanks for putting a bow on that. Elections matter, and so do the rules of the game. All right. One more question for you, and then we'll start to wrap up. As we all know, it takes a lot of work to make this happen. Who else makes the Washington Community Alliance happen? Who do you want to shout out, and what do they do?
Maybe I would shout out 2 organizations that are really important and help the Community Alliance do what it does. One is Balance Our Tax Code is a great coalition and convening space that pushes for progressive revenue and includes think tanks that are crafting policy. There's unions at the table and civic organizations that are working on what's probably the single the issue that makes all the other issues much worse, which is the fact that billionaires in our state get to hoard their money while working people are paying for our services every day at really high rates when we buy food at the grocery store and pay sales tax or pay property tax when you pay rent. So that's a really important coalition that's the WCA is a part of. It makes a lot of our work possible. The other I think about, which is really in the background, is an organization you've co-founded, Win-Win, which is a data utility, I guess is how I would describe it. But they help a lot of organizations actually do things like knock on doors and do phone banks and make sure they're keeping track of the base that they're building. And they act as kind of like the operating software that's humming along in the background. People don't get to see a lot of it, but it makes all of the cool programs and tools that we use possible. And those are two great organizations that people should think about supporting and, help WCA be what it is.
Nice. I appreciate the shout out to my former organization, Win-Win. We used to call it the invisible glue, but I like the operating system analogy better. Glue gets messy. You got stuff in your hands and you're like, what is this? I can't get it off my hands. All right. We're going to start to wrap up now with a final game.
All right.
This one, I came up with a great title for a game. It's Wait, Wait, Do Tell Me. I hope I get letters. Inspired by one of my favorite newsy interview shows. So we're going to do a silly limerick game. I'll have 3. If you get 2 out of the 3, you'll win a prize. I don't know what it is, but it'll be amazing.
Okay. I think I'm ready for the game. I hope there are prizes.
There are. I'm thinking about it right now. All right. Your first limerick. Here we go. Politics are all about timing, and appointments allow for climbing.
All right.
So to shore up elections with added protections, Biden has tapped
Kim Wyman.
Kim Wyman! Ding, 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 ding. Very good. As of yesterday, the Washington State Secretary of State, Kim Wyman, the only statewide Republican, has resigned to lead the Department of Homeland Security's efforts to protect elections from foreign and domestic interference. I think I hear in the distance sounds of dominoes falling. Any bets on who will be our next Secretary of State?
I saw an article about this, and I don't know. There's obviously a lot of county clerks that I guess would be interested. I'm sure there's a few legislators that are thinking about trying to get a promotion to statewide office, begin climbing that way. But no, not sure yet.
All right, not gonna place a bet on any ponies. Maybe later. We'll revisit this. All right. Second one. Here we go. The forecast in Seattle, we bemoan. Rain that soaks us to the bone. Climate change is here, so get out your gear or get caught in the
rain.
Let me read it again. The forecast in Seattle, we bemoan.
Okay.
Rain that soaks us to the bone. Climate change is here, so get out your gear or get caught in the
cyclone.
Bomb cyclone. Ding, 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 ding. Yes, the West Coast drought seems to be over, only to be replaced by flash flooding. We are just about to get socked by the second wave of this bomb cyclone and atmospheric river. And so all y'all on the West Coast, stay dry, stay inside. Okay, you're doing really well. So I really have to think hard about this prize. It's on your way. It's on the way. All right, final one. This one's fun. To vaccination mandates some poo-poo and say the science isn't true, but the governor is clear. Get your shots and don't fear, or get fired like the football coach of
Oh, Wazoo.
Wazoo! Ding 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 ding.
He's the didn't go to Wazoo. Don't follow a lot. But I understand it's a very well paying job. So
It is on October 18th. Wazoo, or Washington State University, fired Nick Rolovich, the head football coach for the Cougars. Rolovich defied the mandate for all state workers to get vaccinated. And it should be noted, as Kamau just said, that Rolovich was the highest paid state worker with an annual salary of nearly $3 million.
That is a lot. That is a lot to pay to not be vaccinated.
Yes. All right. Well, I've had a great time chatting with you. Really appreciate your time. Any parting thoughts? Where can people find you, and how can they support your work?
Oh, great. People should go to wacommunityalliance.org. There is a big donate button. When you click that donate button, there's an even better button to donate every month automatically. People should do that. It's super fun. Everybody's doing it. And people can find me online. I'm on Twitter at Kamau Mau Mau. This was very fun. I learned a little bit about you. The games were really entertaining. I'm really excited to watch all the future talk stories.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining. Kamau, will you send us off by saying goodbye in your family's language?
Yeah. Kwaheri.
And I will say, Joikin. Thanks, everyone. And we'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.